Mr. President.
The senator from Washington State.
Mr. President, I am here tonight to join my colleagues. Obviously, the head of the Senate Small Business Committee, Senator Landrieu, who does such a fabulous job standing up for small business. And she is making sure in this battle that we're having here in the United States Senate that someone is standing up for individual business owners all across America who have had a horrible time getting access to capital. And I just want to thank her for her leadership on making sure that the voice of many Americans who have been talking to their senator now for months and months and months and months about the problems with access to capital. And I want to thank Senators Merkley and Boxer for originally sponsoring this legislation and this amendment to improve access to capital for small business. They both have been listening to their constituents in California and Oregon and know how critically important it is to pass this legislation. So I asked my colleagues who haven't made up their mind about this proposal to check with your offices and to check with your state and to find out if you have heard from small businesses expressing their frustration about the lack of access to capital. Because I think if you actually listen to what people are saying in your state, you will find story after story of people who are frustrated, angry, questioning how it is that Wall Street could get a bailout that is without any specifics about when the Treasury was going to get paid back. Wall Street could get a bailout, and yet Main Street is being denied access to capital right and left. So I know my colleague has traveled his state, and I know the chair of the committee has traveled her state, and I know my colleague from California has been all over her state. But, you know, we've had more and more companies. I had a Washington company in Vancouver, Washington, that basically, when the Bank of Clark County was taken over by the FDIC, and even though the bank that took them over was getting TARP funds, this business had its performing lines of credit cut right out from under them. And that just happened overnight. Another business in the same area immediately had their line of credit cut. Another company, Vancouver Iron and Steel, had all of its loans and was being paid on those, never missed a payment, but it lost its line of credit in that situation. So these are all companies. I've met with many more. Another high-tech company who had international contracts. They were doing everything. Their line of credit pulled right out from under them, and they are still having challenges. Another company in Richland, Washington, that was a biofuels company and had fuel cell technology, had their lines of credit reduced right out from under them, and then made them stop from taking advantage of increasing their payroll and their access and demand for new alternative energy technology. I had another small business in the Spokane Valley who had been trying to hire additional staff and get a new business location so she could improve things. Obviously, she had an existing business. She wasn't given access to credit. Another enterprise back in the Tri-Cities was forced to withdraw their funding, and the project is on hold until they get another line of credit. These are all businesses that are operating, that had relationships with their banks, have had performing lines of credit, and have had that credit cut right out from under them. So I ask my colleagues, when are we going to stand up for small businesses in America who have had trouble getting access to this capital, who have been penalized? I don't think any of these community banks that we've been talking about were doing derivatives. I don't think they were doing the incredible types of activity that got us and our economy into this mess. And what they want to know is, if they didn't cause this mess, how is it that when it came to the big banks, everybody said, yep, here's the opportunity for you, here's the keys to the Treasury, here's all the money, but now when it comes to making sure that community banks are loaning to small businesses, people are saying, no, no, Main Street doesn't have the same priority as Wall Street. Well, I hope America is listening tonight. I've never asked this on the Senate floor, Mr. President, but I hope America will call their senators tomorrow and make them understand that they have been put in a precarious position. They have struggled through this economic crisis without access to capital, without help and support, without a bailout that Wall Street was given. And they want to know, are their senators going to stand up for them and help them with a program, as my colleague said from Oregon, that basically is paid for. It's budget neutral. In fact, the terms of these agreements, people believe, will generate $1.1 billion and help us reduce the deficit. So small business is asking for an effective lending program through the community banks. That's all they're asking for. And we gave Wall Street a bailout without any terms and conditions on repayment. So Main Street wants to know. Main Street wants to know if their senators are going to stand up for them and get an access to capital program that small businesses can take advantage of. I will say to the chairwoman of the Small Business Committee, she knows these numbers well, 75% of new job growth in America comes from small businesses. But they are not going to be able to grow and to expand and to innovate if they don't have access to capital. And right now, they're not getting access to capital because of the new requirements that were put on after this financial crisis that they were asked to adhere to. We didn't ask Wall Street to adhere to that. We basically said, Wall Street, here's your bailout. So please, America, call your senators, make sure they hear your individual story about your business, how you didn't get access to capital, why it's important to get this program. Because I think if America calls their senators and discusses this program with them, we will get the votes that we need to secure this legislation and empower the Americans that are really going to restore our economy.
Would the senator yield for just a comment?
Yes.
Or a question? The senator is aware that we believe, all 59 Democrats to support Main Street, and we have joined by the senator from Florida, Senator Lemieux. This is a Lemieux, Landrieu, Merkley, Cantwell, Boxer amendment, and we will be joined by others. So would the senator say again, how are we going to explain that we did send billions to Wall Street with virtually no terms whatsoever, and now we have an opportunity to send money to small businesses on Main Street, and we can't get a supermajority of the senators to do so? How are we going to explain this?
Well, I thank the chair for that question. I'm sure that some people will give us the details about what they believe the terms of the deal for Wall Street were. But it is safe to say there was no specific date that Wall Street had to pay back that money. No one ever asked them if they would be viable with or without that money. They were just, in the blink of an eye, in some cases, given access to Treasury funds. This is a program that has been done in a transparent process, input of lots of members, input from both bodies, discussed by the Treasury Secretary at many public forums, was in the President's State of the Union address as a priority to get access to capital, and the requirements and specificity of banks who want to apply. This isn't picking winners and losers like in what was done in the haste of October 2 years ago. This is about a bill that is an open process for banks who want to participate, can choose to, and these are the terms that the federal government is setting up for participation. So a very open and transparent process. The main difference is one was a bailout and this is a lending program. So I want to know why my colleagues don't support, if they don't, because I think America supports making sure that access to capital, they know that they want to know why is it that the CEO of an AIG or another company can get access to all the capital they need from the federal government, but when it comes to a small business, they can't go to their community banks and get access to capital at this critical moment for our economy. So I hope that we can resolve this issue and move forward. I hope that Americans will call and speak up about this, because I know maybe there's some states that haven't been as rocked as hard. Maybe there's some states that maybe weren't in the same situation as some of the ones that we've heard from tonight. But I think it's safe to say that Americans have been squeezed by what's happened by this big implosion of our economy. And they know that their ingenuity can help restore this economy, but they need access to capital.
I thank the senator from Washington State.